We're going to talk about using operating agreements to enforce sustainability action. And I'm very lucky to have with me like some really cool and interesting people, like one hotelier, Hilton, one, well, like how do I call you, Andrew? Like a operator, owner operator?
Bit of everything. Bit of
everything. And Sam Eric from like hotelier and designer architect perspective. So we have like a um, bright range of people, and we also.
So my name is Hilton. I am a general manager for the Banyan Group hotels, formerly known as Banyan Tree Hotels. I have two properties that I look after here in Vietnam, in the north of Vietnam. And I've been in the hospitality industry for the last maybe 15 years, mainly in general manager positions, but very influenced into sustainability, well-being, and wellness. Those are my key pillars that I try to enforce to change the world out of the way using our hospitality platform. Very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and great to see you all.
Thank you.
Super. Yeah, so Andrew Miele, as Celine kind of described, I mean, I suppose I've evolved through a variety of different avenues from the development world, with Four Seasons and Six Senses, to then leading Nomadic Group, which was a small operator with 3 hotels in Mexico, 1 in Miami, a variety, in the pipeline. But similarly to Hilton and knowing Celine for a long time as well, I think I've seemed to have gravitated towards more societal impact, as certainly my career and personally have evolved. So super excited to contribute to the conversations.
Thank you.
Well, let me introduce myself. I'm Sam Eric Ruttman, and very happy to be part of the hospitality think tank, which we founded with Studio Puisto and with Celine. So I'm currently working with Studio Puisto Architect as the global director of hospitality development. But my career has started in hotels. Oh gosh, since 1972. I don't know how many years that is, but it's a long time. I'm passionate. I'm passionate by hotels, and I wake up every morning smiling about what I'm going to do about making things better for a lot of people. So I'm really grateful to be part of this group and provide a little bit of input the best I can in contributing to our various coffee breaks.
Thank you. And then Matthias, right on time. Tell us about you.
Hi, Matthias. I'm working with Accor Group, and I'm in charge of the development for mainly Italy and Greece. Been with Accor since 2017 in different roles. First based out of Hamburg with 25 hours, and then Italy with all, I mean, most of the brands now. It's with the premium, mid-scale, and economy brands in particular. Before that, I was in feasibility with Hilton. So very glad to be joining this call as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so let's dive into our topic. Can we use operating agreements to enforce sustainability action? So just like right away, like if you had to answer that question generally, do you think that operating agreements are actually a good tool to help enforce sustainability? Because we've seen that, yeah, a lot of companies talk about sustainability, but sometimes it's quite hard to do the steps unless there are some regulations involved that are like something that kind of force either the owner or the operator to go that way. So what is your, like, on top of your head, how would you answer that?
I mean, I personally think so for sure, Celine. I mean, it's you know, those documents really govern the relationship, right? I mean, between an operator and their owner partners, and then obviously lead into a variety of different themes, you know, that most of us know, whether it's brand standards, design standards, obligations throughout the life of the agreement in terms of, you know, operations and how you manage the business. So I don't think HMAs have really evolved that much, quite honestly. So it seems like this is a really good opportunity and conversation to be able to think about how some of those provisions can evolve, right? To adopt where clearly, you know, the consumer is headed, and clearly where many of our industry colleagues are headed in terms of thinking about the future. So for sure. For sure. It's just a matter of where do you start? Because they're long documents, as we know. So
I think you both mentioned some interesting points there. I mean, Celine mentioned the word force, and then Andrew also mentioned the word relationship. But I think one of the things, and Andrew also mentioned that status quo and no changes. I think I definitely agree that the document has always been pretty much standard, with related to revenue, related to costs, related to rent and things like that. So it really puts the owner in a secure position and somehow it kind of puts the operator under pressure. But I think if the mindset had to change, whereas the owner was more concerned about sustainability, about environmental issues, that would be the perfect place to do it.
no.
And I think we are already, I think all of us are nodding here, that we are starting to see that. Yes, not as much mainstream as we would like it to be there, but if in a governing document that the owning company says, okay, fine, you need to make me a GOP, you need to do this, you need to do that, but you need to plant 10,000 trees over our 2-year relationship. It's
Exactly.
one line, but it's really a game changer because that will enforce us as an operating company to obviously do some good. And then, I mean, all the elements that come off that, or, you know, from a marketing perspective, from a obviously environmental perspective, you know, those are all kickoffs. So I think that it boils down to the mindset of the person building the hotel or the person, you know, governing that document, which is always where it comes back to. But I definitely think, to answer the question, it's a fantastic platform to make changes and make it documented, you know, link it to KPIs, and we can go into that later. So I definitely think it's a place where it should happen, and it is starting to happen, definitely.
I think it also is about the spirit of the contract. I mean, if both parties are of some reason not in agreement, they will always look for a way how to get out of things. But so I think it's aligning the both interests. So I look always at, when I had to do in the development, I always look at this, the relationship and the spirit of the contract that dictates how successful we can do to get things done.
On my side, what I would say is, yes, it's a fantastic tool, and it's the place to do it. But because we're in a competitive position usually against other groups, it should not make the contract overall much more expensive. So, which means that either you will have to compromise on your fees or on other things that you usually ask for a contract, or the modification that you will ask that are, you know, solar panel or whatever else, or you know, sustainable building, should bring economies in operating the hotel. So the return on investment that you will ask in the contract will be offset by economies in operating the hotel, and or overall policies should come along as well to guide us. So we should you know, put these things in our contract. But if the government in the country you're operating is not enforcing or asking anything you're asking in the contract, it will make it quite challenging to apply and to enforce in your contract. so they should move along as well.
I can argue that.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly where I mean my personal perspective on that is it goes to the alignment conversation, right? I mean if there's clearly, you know, with both parties, and it is a relationship at the end of the day. I mean, you choose, and I understand hotel companies need to grow, and there's rates of growth depending on, you know, where they sit in the universe of management companies. But you know, if you have that alignment with the right owner partner and the right real estate developer, frankly, I think the value creation kind of comes, right. I mean, it allows the operating company to demonstrate its forward thinking, you know, in terms of where their consumers headed, in the built environment, you know, where things are going. Yeah, otherwise it's a classic thing, you know. It's like how, you know, linking it to RevPAR growth. I mean, you could go down, you know, that rabbit hole for sure, or linking it to other forms of growth. But yeah, it's really alignment. I don't know, Celine, what are you seeing? I mean, you've been, you know, out in the industry and talking to people, and I mean, all the things you're doing with Blue Zone. I mean, you're just, you know, you have a vast perspective. So, what are you hearing in these conversations?
I think well, I've always thought that operating agreement are a fantastic tool to enforce sustainability, and there are so many different. Maybe just to take a step back, like for people who don't know what's inside operating agreements, you have the like the conditions of the partnerships and the fees, but you also have all the like the operational implication, the operating guidelines, the design
The brand
standards,
standards.
the brand standards,
Yeah.
and the like what's also the reporting package to owner, which is also an important document, because that's what the operators the operator has to track and show to the owner to make sure that basically is doing a good job in operating his hotel. So I think that there's so much value in there. I agree that we are so far from using its full potential. And also to Matthias' point, I see that a lot of companies are a bit shy to use that because they're like, oh, but we're putting all these additional constraints, whereas our competitors don't. So, like, if we have to compete versus another hotel chain, like, and they look at the contract just like from a pure like contractual perspective, they would be, well, your contract is much more complicated, so much more constraints for us. So let's, depending on the type of hotel you're developing and the type of brand you're going to, of course you're gonna struggle. That's where I think that also has to be more like an industry effort to really like, because if everybody or like at least like major hotel brands start saying, okay, like we will all align on these things and all ask for, like, we will not gonna wait for governments um, to force us to do things for sustainability, because right now hotel chains have been talking about sustainability for a while and saying, yeah, like we want to get rid of plastic straws and we want to do this and do that, but that would be like a strong move from them to really show their commitment to that. And yeah, that they are not just taking like a few like flashy actions, but really like ready to work together to at least yeah, like have like maybe find like what are the main terms they could all agree on and put in there, and at least use that as a starting point.
I think it also is relative to the business model of the company you're working with. So, yeah, the likes of Six Senses or the likes of Banyan Tree Group, it's a core value. So, you know, when we're signing, or when they're signing with us or whatever it might be, that is one of the reasons they're signing with that company, is to have that element of sustainability, of environmental protection, SDGs, or so. It should definitely be part and parcel of the whole agreement, because that's why they signed with you, or that's why they signed with us. So I think it's very important. And one other thing is, it doesn't actually have to be in the HMA per se, because there's annexes. So many HMAs have this 20.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.8, 0.6, which is all legal and it's all protecting each other and all that. That's fine, and that can be standard. But you can always add Annex 1, Annex 2, Annex 3 on sustainability, on uniforms, on water, or whatever it might be. And that's a very simple thing to do. So, yeah, I would definitely, once again, always, promote that first and foremost, because it's a signed agreement saying we're going to make an effort, and the owners want you to make that effort. But yes, Matthias is 100% correct. At the end of the day, unfortunately, it's about how much does it cost? How much do we need to spend? How much? And again, and that's the whole sustainability argument, not just to hotel management agreements, it's to business models around the world. It's, why should I change to more expensive cups when I can just use these plastic ones that they churn out in millions and it's cheaper, right? Or you guys mentioned plastic straw. It's cheaper. So again, it's a mindset as well. Definitely.
Yeah, along those lines, can you all hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, good. You know, technology. So you go in through another door, right? So I'm on audio on my phone and video on the laptop. Whatever it takes, right? We know how
We
to do this
appreciate
now.
the effort.
Yes.
We got
We
you.
know how to do this now. So along that lines of, yeah, I guess it comes down to, following up on what Hilton was saying, it comes down to what our clients keep asking us when we're looking at sustainable design options on the design side. They say, I mean, quite simply, where's the ROI? Where is my return on investment? And they're insisting on that. And my hat's off to them for insisting on that. They're running a business, right? They're looking for, where's the return on investment? How is this going to make me money? This really gets to my basic rule on sustainable design, which is it has to make money for somebody, or they won't keep doing it, which means it's not sustainable. It's not economically sustainable. So it's not, they won't keep doing it, right? If it's not, at some point, after the subsidies are gone, after this extra infusion of cash is gone, does it actually have a sustainable ROI? The good news is, again, on the design side, we're finding that it is making money for our owners. And the owners typically hire us, not the operators. You all know that. But we are finding ways to find ROI for these operations. The Marriott Marquis in Atlanta, 1,700 keys, 500,000 square feet of meeting space, big box hotel. Their laundry facility was so big, they were taking in laundry from other downtown hotels. It's something along the lines of 1 million gallons a year of water was running through the system. They were paying for it to come in and paying for it to go out. They installed, for so little money, a recycling in 2 parking spaces in the parking deck, a little recycling facility. They're recycling all of that water now with heat capture. I mean, it's making money for them. It's not just saving money, it's making money for them. They're probably bringing in more laundry. So slowly but surely, we're finding ideas like that. Owners are finding ideas like that. How do we find more of those? And on the operations side, to get into these agreements, things that work. We're working on that. Don't have them all yet.
And I think now there's also more data available, because
Okay.
before, like, it was really hard to data was lacking, but now we don't have this excuse anymore.
Mhm.
There's more data and more like KPIs tracking, and also I would say more relevant data, because like the reality of each property, depending on the location, the size, the facilities, etc. It can differ so much. So it was hard also for hotels to see, okay, like I need to reduce, but what's my benchmark? Like what am I? What is my ideal baseline? But now there's more data available, so it's also easier for hotels, for operators, for investors. Like Sheila was mentioning that increasingly funders and investors will start demanding inclusion of ESG related points. Yeah. And these points can be backed up by data.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, Celine, right? And it's not everywhere, but certainly in some of the more experiential destinations or emerging destinations, where capital is not as abundant, it's not as liquid, it requires a bit more creativity. But interestingly, that does seem to be the places where the impact related equity or debt are also available too, right? So if your point of view is already starting to lean towards those initiatives, it actually could open up more avenues, in terms of capital for a project, by virtue of already having these, whether it's the built environment, renewable, ongoing operating impact, of course, labor. It actually, could actually open up more doors, potentially. Because you can always go the other way, right? I mean, I think that's the other reality here too. I mean, you can certainly flex, but knowing where I think you can push the envelope, just speaking from an operator perspective, to be able to attract the ROI and attract the capital that will invest in it, because they look for certain metrics that might be different than a traditional investor as well, then I think there's an opportunity there. And having it in the contracts and in the agreements demonstrates the conviction, whether that is to the lender or through the local, the environmental agencies locally or otherwise too, right? I mean, they want to see that commitment, and it not just be sort of on paper.
Mm-hmm. And how much does it matter who the owner is, right? A developer who's looking at a 5-year sell versus a REIT,
right.
a REIT, host hotels, et cetera, that may be looking at, okay, we're going to sign a 25-year contract, or we're going to think of a 25-year timeline or longer. How much of a difference does that make in terms of what gets into the agreement?
Yeah, I mean, tremendous. And this is the whole chicken and the egg conversation, right? I mean, is the industry going to take a point of view, and strong enough point of view where some of these things, some elements of the agreements can just become standard, so the asset managers all expect it, the lawyers expect it, the capital partners expect it, or at least anticipate it. Otherwise, you go back to Matthias's point, you end up in this weird kind of the industry ends up negotiating against itself, right? Because then it's like, well, I'm going to go here because they don't have this, and that supports, that particular owner's perspective, right? And I mean, that's okay, I suppose. It's going to take a long time to totally shift everything. But I think starting with a position and then finding those owners like we started with, that are aligned. I mean, I think the good news is there's more owners and there's more capital available that is interested and aligned with this way of thinking, to allow a demonstration of change. So the more properties that become open and operating, and as Celine said, have the empirical data points, that I think is ultimately what will help.
But I also think that if we take the case of a 25-year agreement, that basically means a generation. How does a generation think in the next 20 years, and what are the expectations on the hotel, and are they going to ask those hard questions about sustainability, or does it matter to them anymore? I think that will also dictate how the hotel will have to adjust and also the owner will have to think about these things very clearly, because at the end of the day, the customer will vote with a wallet if it doesn't meet what they are expecting, what is the meaning of sustainability.
Who are the owners looking to, for those forecasts, for those prognostications 5, 10, 20 years out? Are they looking to the brands for that, or other sources?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I think you kind of what Sam Eric was, at least some of what I picked up on in his way.
Andrew froze.
Yeah.
5 to 10 years from now, I mean, in 10 years, what is the expectation of buying real estate, and what are people going to be looking for in buying that real estate?
I think also to Sam Eric's point, like we're also, because when we talk about ESG, it's not only the environmental aspect, it's also the social aspect. And right now, like there's a lot of movements towards more alignment there, and people want, like more diversity and inclusion. So already this, like, society is kind of pushing these points forward. So I think that like the generational impact is also like a very interesting perspective to keep, because the hospitality industry can't keep being behind. Like they need to also like be innovative and step up, and I especially, like, I've always thought that the hospitality industry actually have quite a big responsibility, because they are in touch with so many people every day, like the guests, the communities, the employees. So they're touching every single a large number of people. So
Right.
they really have the the possibility to be like leaders in that, and like really like a change makers, and helping to advance those kind of points from the environment, from the people and social aspects.
What do you all think about, because green loans is becoming quite a big thing, and we all know there's a lot of scandal behind that, and there's a lot of greenwashing as well. But when major investment corporations and banks start giving out green loans, there's obviously some type of KPI. Personally, I haven't taken out a green loan or any of the hotels that I'm running. But when that bank or that investment company gives you that money, there has to be some type of HMA, okay, they call it something else, telling you that you have to do certain things, because it's a green loan after all, right? So it has to touch some SDGs or something like that. So it is actually already in place, I'm presuming. I don't know if any of you have come into contact with that.
Yeah, in the projects that I've seen, Hilton, in that due diligence, of a lender, green lender or an impact, related fund, it's pretty heavily focused on social and human economic development, at least initially, right? Which is at the same time the things that are measurable, right? I mean, of course, job creation, a little bit in terms of the built environment. So, what is going into the building that is going to have, longevity from an energy perspective or otherwise. And then what are the ongoing operational, measures, whether that is, the basics in terms of single-use plastics or water conservation. Who are you hiring? Where are they coming from? So all of those metrics inevitably get laid out during the due diligence period. Interestingly, though, they still didn't get translated into the HMA, right? I mean, it's like there's this long list of due diligence that happens. And I guess it was just a presumption that, the budgets are going to reflect these things and the way it's built is going to reflect these things. But at least in those few experiences, there wasn't kind of a hard and fast, you know, in the document to kind of hold everybody honest, you know, quote unquote, because it's happening so early in the process, you know, when you're originating the loan. So it's an interesting one, actually.
Yeah.
What do you think are the main points that like the main ESG like KPIs or that we could include in management agreement? Like what would be the main terms that that could be added?
I think Curly mentioned that to us. His hotel saving gazillions of gallons of water. That should be number one. I mean, yeah, we need, there's 17 SDGs, and I mean, that would be another 17 pages in the HMA, which is maybe a bit too much. But I think obviously we all mentioned, you know, local community, empowering the people, employment, which can also have a negative side though. You know, environment, biodiversity, waste management. Those are the ones that always come up because those you know, as a hospitality segment, we are guilty of using too much water, of creating too much trash, of, you know, not of destroying and not reproducing biodiversity. So I mean, those are the key elements. But you know, there can be many more, and obviously local environments, equal pay. I mean, you can go into each and every one. You can have protect the food, you know, you protect the environment, you don't do fish, you don't do endangered species. That's another one. Equal pay, male, female, that's another one. And there's many. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit of a tough one
The
to
thing
choose.
with the thing is that a hotel is like a mini town. So you have so many different like crafts and jobs, and it's like few different industries that under the same roof. So it's easy to touch so many different things, you know, like you mentioned the food, like that alone you could write like 50 terms just for food, you know, like keeping it local and seasonal and this and that. And yeah, you can go like you can already have a large list just with that. Yeah, and that's also how I think the hotel hospitality industry could either collaborate with other industries or lead the way to other industries like restaurants, either it's if it's in a hotel or like a standalone restaurant. um they won't really have that many restaurants that have HMA. Like majority of restaurants are independents. So if you have like the hospitality industry setting some trends for F&B, for example, then that can be passed on to more like local and independent restaurants. So there is also this ripple effect that can come from the hospitality industry. And same with like building constructions that can go to residential, or there's a lot of opportunities for sure.
It's a big platform, and like somebody said earlier, we touch a lot of people. So you know, it is our responsibility, and I think a lot of us try very hard to make noise about it because we can. And you know, you come stay at a green hotel and people are paying a lot of money, but when your money's going back to the community or local sourcing or eating healthy vegetable food that doesn't make you sick, yeah, I mean, those kinds of things are very important. And we do that. We try to do that. But yeah, not everybody, because bottom line, that drives the business or drives.
Yeah, I think an interesting example that I've seen where it's measurable, it's very easy to see and show the impact is in design. I mean, so whether it is just to say it has to be minimum LEED or, you know, pick the metric, but there are standards, right, that are out there that for both sides can be easily looked at, easily understood, easily quantified in terms of the cost impact. So I think that's a place to start, of course, because that gets the ball rolling, you know, and then, well, what is the back of house going to look like? You know, what are the operational needs going to be if we are going to achieve this certain standard or certification from the onset?
And that's where on the design side, we've been I guess, banging our heads against the wall for a couple of decades now, where owners, I've heard from a lot of owners that they say, well, the design side doesn't really make that much of an impact in the hotel world anyway. The real savings, the real impact, it's going to be in operations, right? How much we throw away, how much plastic are we using, how much water, how much electricity, how well are we treating our people, all of that. And we keep trying to argue with them about, not argue, but show them what an impact design can make, right? Which mechanical system
For
are
sure.
you using, etc. Design really can make an impact. However, it is still majority operations, I think, in terms of making the impact, just because, like Hilton says, you're touching so many people, right? So many people are experiencing your product, right? Hopefully for a long time to come. And so, how do you reduce? Um, where does AI, just to throw another question out there, right? The hot topic of the day, where could AI come in this, in finding solutions, in helping improve logistics, ordering? I don't know.
Well, AI would absorb all the information and then give us a non-biased calculation, sometimes not grammatically put. So in theory, it's quite an interesting exercise to do. Um, it's exactly, I think, what we mentioned earlier about collecting all the data. And that's what AI would do. It would actually just go and search all the data online and then give us. It would be very interesting to see in what it says. You have to ask it correctly, but yeah, it would be quite an interesting
We're starting to
question.
look at it on the design side, generative AI.
Yep.
We're thinking that it's going to help us generate options. So we'll have more options to look at. Something that used to take a month could
Correct.
potentially take minutes.
Right.
But
Yeah, I
even
mean, just
without
ask.
going to, sorry, even
No,
without going to AI, I remember that Willem, who like from Studio Puisto with Sameric, who mentioned that they put systems in the bedrooms to control the temperature. So when a guest was arriving, they would put the guest in the rooms that's already warm instead of like having to warm from scratch a room. So technology already can help. Can help a lot for this data collection that you're mentioning.
Yeah, the sensors are there by and large. Sensors and sensors and sensors everywhere. We all should have invested in sensors 20 years ago. Other than the independent hotels, yeah, the technology is there for measurement and coordination. But I think we're really not tapping into that very well yet.
Yeah,
That,
Sheila is saying that the with AI that still need human oversight and common sense. She was testing it on Medusa, and they recommended using surgical gloves and tubes. So not only like defeating the purpose,
That's so practical.
using something and adding something else. Yeah.
OpenAI's ChatGPT is very, very clear. I think they tell us in many different ways that, oh, hey, we're still testing this, and you're helping us. You're helping us test this. You, the consumer, are helping us to test it.
That's right.
Well, if we go back to the like the operating agreements and the human side, actually, like one, because I have this list of things that we put together previously on like terms that could be used, and having someone with an ESG role or as an ESG advisor or like an ESG ambassador is also something that can help on property. Like you were all mentioning that operation is a big part. So having someone on site like a ESG advocate helps train the staff, because also a lot of time in terms of operational waste of energy, water, or whatever comes from not lack of training or lack of understanding the training, like people leaving the, I don't know, like they do the cleaning, they leave the water open too long, or the light, or like or like they put the heater on, or like the air conditioning on very high because they think this is what the guest wants. So there's also like a training, I think, and also educating and sensibilization. Do you say that? Like awareness. Like making people aware of those issues, and like finding a way to touch them and make it close to their heart, so then when they do their task, or when they look at it, they think sustainable.
Sure. There has to be leaders. There has to be drivers. I think there's more and more companies out there that are starting to put champions in place, be it the general manager, be it the EAM, be it the housekeeping manager, or even at corporate level. I think we're definitely starting to see that again. So that's why it's still very strange that we don't see it appearing in HMAs, because there are signs all over the show that people do care, and people do want to make an impact, and people do want to be recognized for making an impact. But somehow it doesn't translate into the HMA to the level that we're communicating here.
Andrew, are you ready for that additional FTE on each one of your properties?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with Hilton. And look, I mean, it's also being creative, right? I mean, is it, a traditional director of engineering, I mean, perhaps can be, the leader, in terms of sustainability, and so it's less hierarchy and it's more network and roles, right? And so within the people that surround a director of engineering, you could have champions. So it's not necessarily about adding, another body necessarily, but within their functions on a day-to-day basis, somebody could be championing the local community impact, for example. So I think adding it to the roles or the job description, I think is also an interesting way to get people engaged, at the property that might have otherwise not been thinking about it too, right? So there's a bit of an energy and momentum to that, for sure.
Also maybe like up leveling some skills, like if
Exactly.
you have we saw that with COVID, for example, where the housekeeping, they had to learn, well, that's chemical, so that's not going to help the sustainability discussion, but they had to learn like how to use new products, how to use new protocol, and uplift their skills. So we could do that with sustainability and having some trainings on that.
Yeah, totally agree.
I think the problem is you hit the nail on the head. Us human beings have to be with our backs against the wall, stuck without our hands being able to move, to say, okay, now we need to do something. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened in COVID. And, now we need to do something. So until we get to that point, we talk a lot, but needs to be more action.
Do you think that because like in these terms that we have, like there's something around management fee, and like do you think that financial threat, for example, or putting away like a certain amount of money for sustainability initiatives, or saying, well, if having like a fee structure that includes reaching some ESG goals would help, or would that be seen as because one thing like you want to one thing you don't want is to make people feel that they are forced, and then they won't, like if people are more like taking that to heart, they will be more willing to do even more for sustainability. And like I think that sometimes like it's a topic that can be seen like to be very like greenwashing and this and that, and that's putting people off instead of them caring for the topic. So, like where is the balance between making people care enough so they will do it and they will go even over what you ask them to do, and like threatening them, and at the end they might be like doing just what they want to do or choosing another company.
I think that goes a little bit to what I was saying before. So I think it's a good idea, a way to include it in the contract, but then it's depending on what kind of aspects we're talking about. But if you think about construction, or again the solar panels or waste management, etc., you can do it, but then it comes to I'm talking about the operating company. So if you think about the Hilton, Marriott, Accor, it's therefore you subsidizing the owner for doing something to this building that's sustainable in that sense, because you give him better fee or a bonus if he gets to a certain threshold, which is all good, but again, might impact you as a brand or as an operating company. I think where there is a big space in the contract for us, and what we should do is probably the low-hanging fruits, which are those aspects with which he can make money by investing a little bit more at the beginning for saving on operational costs, and that's something that we should be able to advise and tell him, if you adopt this kind of solutions, you can reduce water consumption by X. If you use this kind of tool for managing utilities, you will be able to better monitor what you're having in the hotel, and act on different aspects. So those items with which you can really improve the profitability of the hotel, that's something we should put in now, and we should be able to explain and train also the owners to these kind of things. Then the rest, which represent maybe an added cost, and that's more difficult to track or to monitor. Unfortunately, either we'll have to help subsidize, or also we'll have to rely on policies to help push our industry in the right direction, or some, as you were mentioning in the beginning, as an industry, how can we get together and discuss this and agree, okay, that's the framework we should all work with, and maybe specific clauses we should include in the contract, even if it's at a cost and we cannot explain the cost other than, well, it helps save the planet. But she's a nice, it's a good return on investment by all means. But
no, it makes sense. I mean, you're asking them to do good, but you're telling them that it's going to do good for them as well.
Yeah.
This whole if I can jump in with a commentary on that. Don't know why there's an echo now. Are you all hearing an echo?
Yeah, can hear you.
Oh, fine.
But without echo. Sustainability and this whole idea of saving the planet. Saving the planet that message hasn't seemed to work. It's not resonating with people. Certainly not with average Joe public. And it's really not about saving the planet. We're damaging the planet. The planet's reacting. The planet right now is on a drive to eliminate the problem. The problem's us. And the planet will eliminate the problem if we don't, wake up and do something. And after the planet eliminates the problem, the planet is going to be just fine.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's a
So
good
the
way
problem,
to
so it's about saving our own rear ends. It's not about saving the planet. Maybe that's
Unfortunately, it's also a difficult message to get across.
I've been trying to spread this message, right? But maybe that will resonate with people. It's about saving your children and grandchildren, right? Whatever generational reference you want to make, but it's about that, not the planet.
I have a quote that's maybe a bit softer, but goes into what you're saying, is that you can't have healthy people on a sick planet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to have like healthy, happy humans, you have to have like a healthy, happy planet. So it's going into your direction. It's maybe a little bit softer.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
I know we keep trying the soft approach. It's not resonating.
But at the same time, it's difficult to make it resonate as well in people that it's for themselves, because I think the timeline of the issue is such that you cannot really project yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people have trouble quitting smoking. They know it's going to kill them,
It's not good.
right?
Yeah.
So
a
how
very
are you
good
going to
example.
quit an
Good
activity that, you know, that might kill your grandchildren? You know, it's like difficult to project yourself.
Mhm. Yeah. And let's go back to what we were talking about in the last month, in the last like coffee call, when we talked about the different alignment between all the stakeholders' perspective in a hotel life cycle, the developer, the investor, the operator, the owner, like they all have a different timeline, and they just think about their own timeline. They don't care what's gonna happen like 50 years from now, or like 20 years from now, or so. Yeah, this alignment is valid in the industry, but also to like a grander scheme.
Well,
I think it's like we
again,
said
from the.
before.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Hilton.
I think it's like we said before, it all depends on the investor's objective. If it's just a quick turnaround or a long-term
Mhm.
investment, then obviously that whole thing changes. Yeah.
And again, on the design side, we are finding ways to show even the short-term holders, the developers who are going to flip it in 5 years, that this move and this move and this move are actually going to improve your building, right? It'll improve the operation of the building, right? It will save you money operating, and it should set you up for a better sale. I mean, that's how we're having to talk with these folks about, this end. Where's the ROI? And we're finding some ways to find it. So on the operational side, on the agreement side, how do you do that? How do you show the ROI? Say, if you make these moves, it will do this, this, and this for you 5 years out, 10 years out.
Oh, it's exactly like Matthias said. Yeah, invest in something now, and then you have decreased expenses, and maybe if it's good equipment, will last longer, and you have a better resale value on your property. And at the end of the day, by doing solar, you're still helping the environment. So it's a win-win.
Well, an operator who doesn't own the building really doesn't care about resale, right? But they care about operating costs. So
That's
we
another
show them
whole
that.
thing. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Well, as you can see, Celine, it's not a one fits all and a 1 hour conversation, and we've got this down.
Exactly. Yeah, we need to do like a take two for to dig even more into this topic. Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, thank you so much for being here. Like to all of you, thank you, Christopher, for joining us. It's nice to have you.
Thank you.
And and yeah, we'll see you next time.